This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Hold on, stop.
Welcome back to the Shit Show 2.0.
Okay, boomer.
Damn millennials. Wow.
Did not know that. Even flirters who are obviously mentally ill. You want to be my wife?
Oh, this is gonna go downhill real quick.
What is going on, and welcome to Take on the World with
Deb Dougherty.
the award-winning retired professional broadcaster.
I'm the super sub, the stand-in.
Super sub.
Super sub.
We're going to Subway.
Substitute. Super sub.
Now I'm hungry for a sandwich.
Hmm.
And Mike D. We are here today, and we are going to be talking about Vince Lee. But before we do that, we are going to talk about the Deluxe Edition Network. We're going to talk about the Denny's, and we're going to talk about our sponsor.
Okay, let's do it.
So, we are a proud part of the Deluxe Edition Network. It's deluxeeditionnetwork.com. Go there and check them out. There's a whole bunch of podcasts on there. It's growing by leaps and bounds all the time. I don't know the exact number anymore. And every time I say a number, by the time this episode comes out, there's someone at it. So
That's a good problem.
it is. You need to get closer to that. I need to hear your voice,
Yeah.
your radio voice.
Yeah.
Also, the Denny's voting is closed now.
And I voted in it almost every day. Just saying.
And we will be getting our results soon. I have an envelope here someplace with the results of our portion, and I will be doing a separate video on that in a few minutes after we're done with this. And then I will send it to the CEO of the Deluxe Edition Network, and he can do with it as he pleases. And then after he posts it, I will post it as well.
Awesome.
Also on the Deluxe Edition Network, there's a podcast of the month. And this month it is The Real Drunks and Horsing Around. These are both podcasts like normally I listen to. Real Drunks does movies and obviously booze.
Oh, okay. I thought that was a prerequisite for the den.
No, not really.
Really?
Actually, Casey wanted to do Sober October. And he said it in the network chat, and like everyone was like, "No, I'm not doing that."
Y'all voted him down.
Yeah, we voted him down.
Big shock.
So, and Horsing Around does a lot of different topics, kind of similar to us. They have four guys on the show, and they do a really good job. I enjoy listening to it. So check them both out. They're the podcast of the month for the month of May. It is May, right?
It is May, counting down to
Okay.
vacation.
And I just want to point out that this episode is official episode 98 of Take on the World.
Is that it?
Well, I don't count the lockup. I don't count the nerd cast. All those are separate. This is the 98th long form Take on the World.
Okay. Well, John definitely better be back for the 100th.
He better be. Man, I'd love it to Lexi to be here for the 100th too. Have a table full of hosts.
And you'll have to get V too.
We don't have enough microphones.
You can share. Done it before.
I'm not sharing. I'm not good at sharing.
Well, you don't have to share yours, but everyone else can share.
Yeah, I don't care about everybody else. So, not much else going on. So we're gonna jump. Go ahead.
You do have a sponsor.
Oh yeah, damn! I even said I was gonna do that. The sponsor for this episode
98.
98 is Caldera Labs. And I will be putting a little bit more of that in, so pay attention later. I also, I'm just going to make a quick mention. I have a discount code and a link for some beard care products. I will put in the bottom, but I'm going to do a separate do up for them. I just got my beard care stuff in the mail.
Love the smell.
And
It's awesome.
I do. It's very nice. I got to keep this beard beautiful. Sometimes it's not easy. I wish Nathan would.
It takes hours.
Not hours.
Hours.
Minutes.
Hours.
So now we're going to jump right in, right? Anything else? Did I forget anything else?
I don't think so.
Are you sure?
You got it.
Okay. So Vince Lee. Now, Vince Lee was on our list for the Denny's of the most gruesome murderer of all time.
Is pretty disgusting, but I did not vote for him.
I know. I didn't vote for him either. I actually voted for Miss Meat Curtain. And we'll find out who won later on, because the only person on that list that we didn't cover now
Is the one I voted for.
is Jack the Ripper. And I haven't done Jack the Ripper because, like, everybody's done Jack the Ripper. But now when I was looking up some stuff, some other stuff, I look at some Ripper stuff all the time. And I found that they have a list of suspects and somebody who they think is a viable suspect. And I don't know if I heard a whole lot about that person. So I might do a touch on Jack the Ripper, but cover the person that they think it is.
I have always been interested in Jack the Ripper because when I was a child, we lived in Arizona for a short time, and the original London Bridge is in Lake Havasu City, Arizona. And when I was a kid, we went to visit it, and so I've always been interested in it.
Cool. I've always been interested in it too. It was fascinating. 1888. That there's this homicidal maniac going around killing prostitutes in Whitechapel.
Well, and we kind of think that this kind of behavior is modern, I think. And if you don't know your history, you don't know.
I wonder if he was in the U.S. Navy.
I don't think he's on the list.
He probably isn't. So, I might touch on that topic a little bit. I'm not gonna go deep into Jack the Ripper because everybody's done it. If you want to find it, all you gotta do is type into YouTube Jack the Ripper, and you can get a million videos.
Just find a new way to do it.
Now you type in Vince Lee into YouTube, and you're gonna find 100 videos. So I didn't hear this guy until I started doing research for the list that I wanted to present for the Denny's.
Okay.
And then when I saw this guy, I'm like, holy crap. Like, I can't believe this crap. So he's a murderer and a cannibal. He killed 22-year-old Tim McLean on a Greyhound bus while traveling the Trans-Canada Highway west of Portage La Prairie, Manitoba. And a little spoiler alert, he walks free today.
Yeah, you didn't bury the lead there.
No, I did not. Because this is what made me think, this is one of the most gruesome murderers of all time.
It is a gruesome murder, although and I don't mean to make light of it, he only killed one person.
Right. And so did Catherine Knight, but the method and you can't really say MO.
No, you can't. I did read that on the internet.
Well, I knew that because an MO would say there was multiple crimes and that's his method of operation. But the way the two of them killed and the other stuff they did, I mean, it's gruesome.
It is very.
So Vincent Huaihan Lee was born April 30th, 1968 in Dandong, Lang, China. I don't know if I pronounced that right, but it sounded okay.
Which makes him 55 today.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
In 1992, Lee graduated from the home of COVID, Wuhan Institute of Technology.
The Wuhan virus.
Yes. With a bachelor's degree in computing. Now, these two lines here, they really throw me off from who this guy is. And I know when some people immigrate to another country, their degrees don't transfer and, they end up doing jobs that they wouldn't normally have done. But from 1994 to 98, he worked in Beijing as a computer software engineer.
Well, and don't forget there would be a language barrier. It's my understanding he didn't speak very much English when he moved.
No, you're
or
right.
French.
You're right. You're correct.
But Manitoba, I'm guessing, is not French speaking.
I don't know. Lee immigrated to Canada on June 11th, 2001, and became a Canadian citizen in 2006.
Which I found interesting. And that might get a little political, and I don't mean to, but he was allowed to become a citizen even though it was known to authorities that he suffered from a mental illness.
Yeah, and I know people who can't go to Canada because they have simple assault on their record or they have a DUI
from like 30 years ago.
Right. And that encompasses his time. So it's like during this time frame, they're not allowed to go because they have those charges that they've done their time for, paid their penance, and haven't repeated. And here's a guy who you will see obviously has mental health issues. Just, hey, come on in.
Want to be a citizen? Okay.
Let's see. In 2004, he worked in Winnipeg doing menial jobs at Grant Memorial Church to support his wife, Anna. Now, he's computer software engineer, bachelor's degree in computing, and he's a church janitor.
I had also read he worked at Walmart for a while and some other jobs.
Yeah, if we'll get there. Forklift driver, Walmart. I don't quite understand that, and it could have been the language barrier, because while he was at this church, he learned a lot of English from the pastor. The pastor was Tom Castor, who hired him, and he stated that he seemed happy to have a job despite the language barrier, and the other congregation members were
happy to have him. He got along well with
he got along well with everybody. Like, there was no issues while he was there, really. Lee converted to Christianity and was baptized while he worked at the church after he, quote, heard the voice of God talk to him. The voice called him the third story of the Bible, as well as a second coming of Jesus. So already you could see there's some detached reality. And that he also was told he was destined to save people from an alien invasion. Okay. He's tipping over the cliff.
Well, and you and I may disagree on this, but I believe God talks to people regularly every day. He usually, as far as I know, doesn't talk to them about alien invasions or tell them they are the second coming of Jesus. But that's just my personal belief.
I think there's obvious mental break in his life at this point. He did say Lee had some frustration due to his inability to communicate. So the language barrier was an issue for him, and he quit that job in 2005. And then he took a job as a forklift operator in Winnipeg. The voice would talk to him regularly. And I'm assuming this is from interviews with him, because the Schizophrenia Institute of Canada interviewed him towards the end after everything, and he made some statements. But I'm wondering if that's where this information came from. The voice talked to him regularly and gave him orders to prepare by traveling through the country on foot or by bus. He would disappear from his home for days on end, and that fact was verified by his wife.
No, I read very little about his wife.
Yeah, I don't know if they actually divorced, if they were just separated, if what. I don't know.
I mean, for me personally, sorry, you and I are very different on this. I'm interested in these stories from the personal connections. And I always wonder, how can someone live with someone for any length of time and not see, signs of psychotic behavior? Because so many times, people will do things and the people around them don't know they were living with a serial killer or someone who was very ill.
Well, I think it was evident to her that there was issues. And that's why she verified he would just disappear.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming if he's hearing voices, he talked to his wife about it or mentioned it to him or said, hey, this voice told me to do this. On a side note from this, I just did some training at work, and it was basically to help us understand how people with mental illness feel
Mm-hmm.
in situations. And they gave us a set of headphones, and we had to, it started off with some music in the background, and then they started giving us tasks to do. They would give us a paper with math and a paper with whatever. And we were supposed to go through and do as many of the trivia questions and stuff. And then besides the music, there was voices in your head basically telling you you're a piece of shit and you made a mess. You need to clean your mess up. Just over and over this mantra in your head talking. And the funny thing is in my line of work, we learned to block out everything that's not important.
Oh, I know.
And basically you focus on what is important. That's making sure you still have all your guys. It's making sure that nobody's stabbing each other. It's listening for sounds of stuff that would alert you to an issue. And so you put all that other stuff aside. So like I'm going through these trivia questions, and some of the younger guys who haven't been there that long, the lady would ask, well, who has 2 questions answered? And there'd be a couple people raise their hand. Does anybody have more than 2? I raised my hand. I had 12 of them because I can focus on it. I don't focus on that background noise, but it was there and it was tiring because you have to, like, when you block it out, it's not an abstract thing. You're mentally blocking it out, and that takes a toll on you physically and mentally.
Understood.
And I'm not going to say I found the training particularly useful, but it was a little eye-opening, I might think.
Well, and you're using that information here, so it wasn't wasted.
No. Anything for a podcast. I subjected myself to mental illness for this podcast.
Yeah. That's usually John's job.
Yeah. Well, he wasn't here, so I had to do it. He said he was following. Hold on. No. Back up. In 2005, he was found by the Ontario Provincial Police wandering a highway in Winnipeg, or the highway to Winnipeg.
Okay.
He said he was following the sun at the command of God. Okay.
And that's S-U-N.
Yes. Because he's the son now.
Yeah, right.
So Lee was examined by a mental health institute. And despite the newspaper saying that Lee was diagnosed with schizophrenia and refused medication from William Osler Health Center, there was no official record saying that actually happened. So either, as we've seen with a lot of the serial killers and killers that we've covered on this podcast, either something slipped through the cracks and it wasn't documented, or the documentation was lost, or, as we've also seen, the newspaper just sensationalizes shit.
Well, that's true too. And that's where I am with this. Like sometimes I wonder, why do you want to do all these reprobates, all these disgusting things? But for me, I look at it like, if you're going to look at this stuff, look at where we failed. Where did the mental health system, where was the breakdown, so you can improve later?
And I'll tell you, as me and John have done more and more of these, we have found a lot of failures in the systems.
Yeah.
The systems that are put in place to help people stay healthy and what am I trying to say? Productive members of society, or just help you with your mental health or whatever. But there's been a lot of failure, and I understand that there's limited resources, but this guy was taken to a mental health center, and whether they didn't document it, it got lost, or the papers essentially sensationalizing it. There was obviously something wrong with him.
Well, and this is what I don't understand. I don't understand how someone gets taken to the hospital. And look, we spend a fortune on healthcare, and maybe it's not directed in the right areas. I don't know. That's a totally different topic. But how does someone go to a mental health facility, tell authorities I'm on this vision quest because God told me, and you not look deeper, you not pick up on something? If in fact he's schizophrenic, and he was later diagnosed as schizophrenic, so I have no doubt he is. What did they miss? Or if something was lost, what the hell happened to it?
Of course, if all these systems were always working and in place, the Blues Brothers would never completed their mission. Just saying.
I know, but you know what I mean. If you take away anything from these stories, you've got to find where the gaps are, and what you missed and how you missed it. Is it, I have a big problem with all these electronic records. It's supposed to make your life easier. Have you gone to a doctor recently? Does it make your life easier? Because you still have to go through all the same shit you did before. And it's supposed to be right there in front of them. So if you go to this doctor or that doctor or that doctor, they've got everything in front of them, and they don't. So what's the point of the electronic record?
Right. They always ask me, what medications am I taking? I'm like, it's not on your computer.
It should be right there. Quit asking me dumb questions.
And then I'll say, well, I don't know. I didn't write them down. They said, well, are you still taking? Well, if you knew, why'd you ask?
It's supposed to make things easier, but if it doesn't, then why are we bothering?
But also with the breaks in programs, it's not just the mental health stuff. It's not just doctors. It's a lot of times, like I keep going back to Richard Ramirez, Little Dicky. That's me and John's affectionate name for him.
Okay.
I go back to Little Dicky, and he was stopped by the cops.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another guy that we did, and I can't remember which one it was. The cops walked into his apartment.
Dahmer.
No, it wasn't Dahmer. We didn't do Dahmer.
Oh, well, Jeffrey Dahmer, they were there. They one of his victims. They
walked into the apartment, and the girl was dead in his kitchen, and the guy got away. Yeah. Like, how's that happen? And I don't want to second guess, police officers and what they're dealing with, and their focus is probably checking if the girl was alive and lost track of him. If there's only one guy, knocking on the door, I get it, but it's time after time after time. There's these little things that allow these people to go on and
well, I think didn't he lobotomize someone, and the person escaped, and the police brought him back?
Yeah. So 2006, Lee moved to Edmonton, taking jobs as a janitor, a mechanic, a cashier at Wally World, a server at McDonald's, delivering newspapers. One of his bosses stated he was reliable, worked hard, and not showing any signs of trouble. And then 2 years later, while he was working at Wally World, he was fired following a disagreement with another employee.
But we don't know what that disagreement was.
No, we don't. That dude could have ate his fucking sandwich out of the refrigerator. I'd smack somebody for that.
It pisses some people off. It's a big deal in the office I work in. Someone's always stealing shit from the refrigerator.
Just before the incident, he requested time off from his delivery job to go to Winnipeg for a job interview. On July 29, 2008, at 12:05 p.m. in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, as Mean Gene Oakland would say, Lee boarded a Greyhound bus bound for Winnipeg. At 6 p.m., he got off the bus in Edmonton or Erickson, Manitoba. He had 3 suitcases with him, and he sat down on a bus bench, and he was resting. So he I guess he laid down.
He spent the night, from what I read.
Yeah,
on
he
the
spent the
bench.
night on the bench. And according to witnesses, at 0300 or 3 a.m. for civilians, he suddenly bolted upright, and his eyes were wide open. Nobody knows why. I guess he heard a voice. On the 30th, he was still on the bench. He sold his brand new laptop to a boy who was 15 years old for $60
For bus fare.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
I
that's
thought
what
he had
I
a-
read.
I thought he had a ticket all the way through.
No, I read he sold it for bus fare.
Because those Greyhounds, you can get off and get back on whenever.
Mhm.
Like you get on the next one coming.
Mhm.
On a side note, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police seized the computer as evidence, but it was quickly replaced due to his honesty by a local businessman. Some local guy said, "Hey, good job, kid.
Oh,
I'm going to replace it."
nice.
Canadians are so nice. Vince then boarded another Greyhound bus where he sat next to Tim McLean. According to the other passengers on the bus, McLean barely acknowledged that Vince was there. And
Yeah, I had read it was kind of like a, hey, how's it going, dude?
yeah,
Yeah.
he was like, sit down.
He wasn't dismissive of him.
If you got to sit next to me, go ahead, you stinky fuck. And then Tim fell asleep.
He had his, from what I read, he had his headphones on.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what I read.
At 12:30 p.m. or 12:30 at 8:30 p.m., Lee suddenly attacked McLean, stabbing him dozens of times with a large knife. A witness, Garnet Canton, said the attacker seemed oblivious to others when the stabbing occurred, and
he was shocked by how calm he was.
yeah, just like he said, it was almost robotic.
Yeah.
He was just stabbing the guy robotically, not even paying attention to anybody else on the bus. And everybody else on the bus is like, fucking, what the fuck? And they start panicking. They start running off the bus. The bus driver pulls over and calls the police. In the meantime, Lee starts dismembering and decapitating and cannibalizing McLean's body. Yeah,
from what I read, the bus driver stopped and he and some passengers actually tried to intervene and were injured. Lee kind of sliced them too. So they all got off the bus.
Yeah.
I can't, like, I don't know. Like, I look at it like here in this country, somebody would have shot that son of a bitch.
Yes.
Like somebody, I would hope, if I get stabbed on a bus, is packing heat.
And back in this time, you could still have guns in Canada. You can't anymore.
Yeah.
Thank you, Trudeau.
But that didn't happen. But it, like, because when I was first reading about this, I thought, oh my God, like, did nobody help? But they did try to stop him. They just were injured in the process.
Yeah, and this is after 2001, where, on 9/11, people on that last plane got up and confronted the terrorists.
Yeah,
and
that's what I was thinking. Like, my God.
Like, haven't we learned our lesson? Let's just do it.
Yeah.
But
they did. They did try to help.
But Canadians are so nice. They probably just said, "Oh, he's just having fun."
Yeah, get out. That's not what happened.
Well, you never know. You weren't there.
No.
I've heard it both ways.
Of course.
So the police get there. Here's, and we discussed this a little bit last night. Here's where Wikipedia, like I'll always look at Wikipedia, but anything it says in there, I try to verify.
Right.
And I go to either Murderpedia or
newspaper reports,
or what's the other fandom. And the information is always different. So they said he just gave up on Wikipedia. But every place else says there was a day-long standoff.
Yeah, I had read that he tried actually to escape from the bus and the police tased him.
Debbie,
Why?
jump ahead.
Why didn't they just shoot him?
Look, Debbie, jump ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm filling in for John. That's my job.
And John, just so you know, it's the next line.
But it was I didn't read ahead. It was very traumatic for the passengers.
Yes.
I had read that he was taking Tim's head and hanging it out the window at them at some point, and I guess he lost his calm demeanor.
Yeah. So, like, well, he was panicking when he was trying to escape.
Yeah.
And I want you to remember the fact that he tried to escape. I want you to remember the fact that he was basically taunting the police.
Well, right, because no, I won't jump ahead. Go ahead.
So,
I know where you're going with it. Go ahead.
The police recovered most of McLean's remains, some of which were found in his pockets. Now, you said his ears were in his pockets.
I thought I read his ears, his nose, part of his heart was missing, and they assumed he ate it.
Now, if
That's what I read.
anybody listened to our last episode with Johnny, World War II cannibalism, that was one of the things that the Japanese they would cut the nose off, they would cut the ears off, they would cut the cheeks off, and those were parts that they would consume.
Yeah.
But
I did listen to that. I did hear that.
So I'm going to take a break here, and we'll be back in a second, because now we're going to go into the court phase. Now, there was going to what we've already done.
Is this the break?
No, this isn't the break.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to the break as soon as I'm done making this short point.
Sorry.
I thought this was in the top 5 of most gruesome murders because it happened on a public bus.
Yeah.
He stabs the guy like 50,000 times. He cuts his head off. And he starts to eat him raw.
But it takes some effort to decapitate a human body.
Yeah.
It's not an easy thing to do. I mean, it's not like you're, dissecting a chicken.
And the knife they said was like a kitchen knife.
Really?
I think that's what they said.
I didn't read anything about the knife.
Or knife.
A large knife.
It just says a large knife.
Yeah.
I'm assuming a kitchen knife or a big buck knife. And those are not conducive to cutting off body parts. You have a spine to go through. Not that I've ever done it. But it just, no, I don't get it.
No.
To completely decapitate someone with a large knife.
No, and I think the heartbreaking thing is the victim is Tim McLean, and he's this 22-year-old guy. He works in a carnival, and because we didn't really talk about him. And,
He was a carnival barker.
Right, and he was heading home after work. I guess he was going back to visit his family. But this 22-year-old guy, and I think maybe it hits home for me because our son is just about 21. And it's just, he had his whole life ahead of him and it was stolen.
So now we're going to take the break and then we'll go into the court stuff.
Okay.
All right. We'll be right back. This episode is sponsored by calderalab.com. These guys do men's skincare products. Now, you might think I'm just this beautiful naturally, and it takes a little work sometimes. I've been using this for about a week. I get up every day. I start with the Caldera Clean Slate, lather, rub it into my face, rinse, dry, and then I apply a small amount of the base layer to my face and neck. And then every night I clean my face again with the Clean Slate. I rinse and dry, and I rejuvenate with the Good. It's a 3-part system. It keeps my skin nice and soft. I have oily skin, so I need to keep it clean all the time. Normally, I wake up and my face is all oily and greasy. And, in this week I've been using it, it's not. It's nice. It's still nice and clean, and I'm loving this stuff. If you go to their website, It's CALDERALAB.com. You use TOTW and you get 20% off your order. Frankly, if anybody knows me, I wouldn't say good stuff about something that I don't like. I love this stuff. Keeps my face nice and soft, beautiful. I even use it on my beautiful bald head. So go and check it out. This stuff is sustainably sourced. It's all natural and a 60-day money-back guarantee. You can't go wrong. Check it out.
Hey guys, Matt coming at you from the Real Drunks. Hey, if you're into movies, booze, craft beers, and just shooting the shit with your friends, join myself, Jake, and Alyssa on the Real Drunks on the Deluxe Edition Network and anywhere you get your podcast from. That's the Real Drunks, REEL, the Real Drunks. Check us out.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
And we're back. The beer fairy visited.
I don't have a beer.
You're not drinking beer. What are you drinking? Water?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Tonic.
You want to slide that back so it doesn't fall off? Makes me nervous. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
Vince Lee.
Now it's this time for him to go to court. So he goes to court in Portage La Prairie courthouse on the charges of second-degree murder. How is that second-degree murder?
Well, is second-degree murder the same there as it is here?
That's a very good question.
I
I don't know. It's Canada, and they're very nice. So they might say, okay, we'll give you the benefit of the doubt.
So, well, what is the it's not intentional. It's not pre-planned.
Premeditated.
Well, he didn't. He woke up that day on the bus, and
even if he,
although why was he carrying a knife if it wasn't premeditated?
even if he planned to kill somebody, it's premeditated in my eyes.
Yeah. Why did he carry a knife?
So, he's in court being charged second-degree murder. The only words Lee reportedly uttered were, "Please kill me."
And I had read that he requested several times.
Yes.
While he was in court.
Throughout his trial, he said the same thing. So the trial commenced on March 3rd, 2009.
And he must have had a very good attorney.
I don't know. Lee pled not criminally responsible on account of mental disorder. This means that he accepted that the offense occurred, but claimed that he was unable to form the necessary mental element or mens rea.
And every time I hear mens rea, you know what I think of?
What?
Legally Blonde.
Yeah, I know. Me too.
Mens rea.
Which I'm going to go back to my previous point. He began taunting the police.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to escape.
The act of escaping, to me, shows he knew he did something wrong. But I think when it comes to pleading mentally ill, it's in that moment. So 30 seconds later, if you realize, oh, shit, it's still considered in that moment.
Well, you can be mentally ill when you commit a crime
and still know the difference.
And still know the difference right and wrong.
Agreed. And something else that this conversation always reminds me of, and why I remember this, and I'm going to date myself, Quincy. Quincy got very political. And I remember towards the end, there was an episode about this where he fought, Quincy, the medical examiner, fought that our laws should be changed, that you are not innocent by reason of insanity, but you are guilty but insane.
Yes.
So when you are rehabilitated, you still serve your sentence. And I kind of lean that way.
I understand that, but if someone really doesn't know what they're doing, I don't know. If you kill someone, you deserve to go to jail. That's I don't give a shit. So that's my stance. And I might be dating myself there.
But I think even, as you said, even someone who's mentally ill still knows the difference between right and wrong. And I think those that don't are few and far between, those who are, that far
Well,
into the throes of a mental illness
okay,
that they wouldn't know the difference.
I agree, and that's what I'm saying, that even though they are few and far between, those people should be protected
Sure.
somehow too.
Sure.
I don't want to just lump everybody together. But
No, but I don't think this guy is one of them.
No, I don't think he is. But then again, I wasn't there, and I've heard it both ways. Stanley Yaren, who I'm guessing was a psychiatrist,
Okay.
said that his patient's schizophrenia rendered him inculpable, and as he had been under the false belief that McLean was a force of evil and posed an imminent threat to himself and others.
Well, and that's my understanding, that the voice of God told him that this man was evil and was going to kill him if he didn't kill him first, or if Lee didn't kill Tim McLean, God would kill Lee. I'm not really sure on that, who would kill who, but Lee was going to die if he didn't kill McLean.
And I don't know. I don't understand mental illness in that capacity. But like this next part, in Lee's mind, McLean was really a demon in disguise, an alien who needed to be destroyed, to the point where he felt it was necessary to mutilate McLean's body to prevent him from coming back to life. Now, is that really what happened, or is that how he's trying to get out of trouble?
I don't know. And so, if this is what I don't understand, if you think this person is evil incarnate, why are you going to consume him?
Well,
I wouldn't take on the evil.
If you go back to our last episode on cannibalism in World War II, the Japanese had an 1800 song for children, basically consume your enemies. And that's how they justified some of their cannibalism.
But in my thinking, then you become that.
Right.
I don't want to be taking on any evil. I got enough of my own shit to deal with. I don't want to be taking on yours.
Lee had also felt pressured to perform the attack by the voices he believed were from God, telling him McLean sitting beside him, kill McLean sitting beside him, or he himself would be killed.
Yeah, that's what I said. I wasn't clear on who would kill him. Would McLean kill him? Would God kill him? And maybe I'm getting too far into it, but I think from a legal standpoint, I would want to know, sitting on that jury, so I can form
who
my
exactly
opinion.
was going to kill you.
You're right.
Both defense and prosecution were in agreement with Yaren's assessment and spoke in favor of involuntary commitment to a mental institution rather than prison time. But here's what I'm saying, and this goes back to our previous conversation. If he's going to be involuntary committed, he should never get out.
Agreed.
Because he will always be a danger to society, period.
Well, right. Once you have, and then you get into medicate it, not medicate it. But I don't want to jump ahead.
Well, I don't want to jump ahead either, but you will see that this involuntary commitment to a mental institution didn't last long, because I spoiled at the beginning. He's walking the streets today.
Well, and then fine, I'll ruin it. His release was unconditional.
Yeah.
There's no more monitoring. So if he wants to go off his meds, he can go off his meds. And unfortunately, with mental illness, you see that time and again. People don't like the way they feel on their meds. They're not themselves, so they go off them.
Well, I personally know someone who I grew up with, ended up in jail because he was bipolar. He would go off his medication because he didn't like how he felt, and he would get in trouble. He'd do stupid shit, get in trouble, and over and over and over, until one day he said, I am just going to stay in this medication because I'm tired of this life the way it is. I'm no happier going in and out of jail than I am unhappy on my meds. So he got on his meds, stayed on his meds. He's married, has a kid, runs a business, and he stayed on his meds, and he's okay.
But he never hacked someone up.
No, not that I know of. He may have. So, the presiding judge, John Scurfield, accepted the diagnosis and ruled that Lee was not criminally responsible for the killing. But he was responsible for it. Not criminally, but he was responsible for it. So I think he should stay in a mental institution for the rest of his life. Lee was remanded to Selkirk Mental Health Center. Throughout the trial, Lee asked to be killed several times. To me, that also shows remorse, which means you did something wrong.
Yeah. But the question is, did he know at the time, or was that afterthought?
I think he did. While in the hospital, Lee was sued by several of the bus's passengers that had been present during the attack, as well as McLean's family members.
And I don't know if this is in your notes, but I had also read, and it attests to the gruesomeness of what happened. One of the police officers suffered from PTSD who responded, and he later committed suicide, and his family felt it was a direct result from this incident. He never shook it.
Right. It is in here.
Okay.
And his family in his obituary said he had PTSD. They did not say specifically from this, but this was gruesome.
Yeah.
You see this shit over and over and over. Every time you close your eyes, you see this shit. The week following the attack, Greyhound Canada announced it was pulling a series of nationwide advertisements in which the slogan was, "There's a reason you've never heard of bus rage."
That's quite unfortunate. Although it's not really bus rage either.
No, it's not, but make the connection.
But I don't understand, and this is my problem with some of these lawsuits anyway. How is it Greyhound's fault?
I don't think it is.
Well, no, but they did later. I'm assuming they settled because they withdrew their suit. The families withdrew their suit.
Yeah. Well, they withdrew their suit against the district attorney, I think.
Well, I thought they sued Lee, Greyhound. I don't know about anybody else. I assume they were suing Greyhound, because Greyhound has deeper pockets. But
the incident led to numerous calls and petitions demanding increased security on intercity buses. McLean's family brought a lawsuit of $150,000 against Greyhound and the Attorney General of Canada and Vince Lee. So Greyhound's in there because there's the money.
Right.
The Attorney General's in there because there's the culpability, and Vince Lee's in there because he's responsible. On June 3rd, 2010, Lee was granted supervised outdoor walks within his mental health facility as voted by the Provincial Review Board.
So he had to be accompanied on these walks. He wasn't just allowed to go.
So with the universal health care up there, they have review boards for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And they thought it was okay for him to go for walks around the grounds, supervised. A year later, in February, two passengers, Deborah Trucker and Kaylee Shaw, filed a lawsuit against Lee, Greyhound, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and the Canadian government for being exposed to the beheading. None of those people,
except for
Lee, had anything to do with that. They were seeking $3 million each in damages. On July of 2015, the two women dropped their lawsuit.
Yeah, I'm assuming
there was a payout.
Greyhound settled it. Yeah, they settled that, of course.
It's just bad press. And that's, unfortunately, a lot of times that's why those companies settle.
Mm-hmm.
It's cheaper for them to settle than to do damage control and bad press.
Right. But in reality, how that in any way, shape, or form was Greyhound's fault, I don't see.
I mean, short of putting an armed police officer on every bus.
And that's not realistic.
No, it'd be cheaper to pay the lawsuit.
Now we do it on airplanes, don't we? Not everyone, but
no. Well, you never know.
You never know.
On May 30th, 2011, the CBC, Canadian Broadcasting Company, reported that Lee was responding well to his psychiatric treatment and that his doctor had recommended that he receive more freedoms phased in over several months. And in response, I say, fuck that.
Well, and this, from what I read, it was not well received by the public.
No.
None of this was.
No, I can't see that it was. On May 17th, 2012, the National Post reported that Lee had been granted temporary passes to allow him out of Selkirk Mental Institution to visit the town of Selkirk, supervised by a nurse and a peace officer. So now he's able to walk through town with a nurse and a police officer.
And I'm wondering, who's he visiting?
I think it's just walking through town, going into a shop. I guess you can't have a pint, but in an interview with Schizophrenia Society of Canada, Lee affirmed his guilt and said he can never forget the Greyhound bus and believes that he can never be happy again. Well, I, for one, don't care.
No, he's got to live with it.
Lee offered an apology to the McLean's mother, stating, "I would like to say to Tim McLean's mother, I am sorry for killing your son. I am sorry for the pain I have caused. I wish I could reduce the pain." Well, take that and stuff it in a bag of shit.
Well, that doesn't do her much good to hold on to it, though.
In February 2014, he was granted unsupervised leave from the hospital to visit Selkirk for 30 minutes, then expanded to full day trips. So he could walk to town for 30 minutes, had to come back. Then a couple hours, then a whole day. In 2014, one of the first officers who reported to the scene, Corporal Ken Barker of the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, committed suicide. His obituary stated he suffered from PTSD. I am presuming as a result of this incident.
Yeah, that's what I read.
It's not an easy thing to see. February 2015, Lee would be granted a pass to visit Winnipeg as long as he carried a functional cell phone.
Who's he visiting?
Is his wife there?
I don't know. I tried to search. Is he still married? What happened to his wife? What did his wife say? I mean, I get it. And she has the right to privacy. It's not her fault that he did these things, but I still want to know.
Yeah. So in May of that same year, 2015, Lee was granted a pass to group homes in the community. So he now is out of the hospital and living in group homes.
Yeah.
February 2016, Lee changed his name legally to Will Lee Baker and asked for the right to live alone from the Criminal Code Review Board. So I guess a parole board, sort of. 2017, the Manitoba Criminal Code Review Board gave Lee an absolute discharge. Absolute. No follow-up. No medical visits, no social worker visits, no nothing. Just see ya, go out. And all in all, he spent 6 years in either the mental institution or the group homes.
Under supervision.
There was no legal obligations, no restrictions pertaining to Lee's independent living.
Yeah, and I've tried to search where is he now, and you can't find anything. Again, I understand people have the right to privacy. I just, even if I accept that they found him not criminally culpable and let him out, I can't believe there's no conditions.
Yeah,
and
nothing.
How long do people typically live on parole or probation or whatever? Is it parole or probation? I always get them mixed up.
They're two different things.
I know. I always get them mixed up. So when you commit a crime, you go to jail and then you get released. Is that parole or probation that you follow up with?
It depends.
I don't know the difference, but that there's no follow-up. There's no requirement that he be regularly tested to make sure he's maintaining his meds.
If nothing else, that should have been there.
Right. Because you're saying he's okay to be in public, but he's only okay to be out in the public if he remains medicated. And from what I read, there was an uproar in the public over this. in Canada as well.
There was people were not happy.
I don't think it changed anything because there was a question of does he have the right to privacy, and that's what ultimately the courts found that he has the right to privacy now. So you don't have the right to know where he is or is
in
he
my
on his
opinion,
meds.
he has no rights.
Well,
None.
I think if you say, okay, he's okay to be out, all right, fine, he has the right to be out. But if you're saying he's no threat to the public, I think you owe it to the public to make sure that he is never a threat to them. And if that means staying on his meds, then you have an obligation to make sure he stays on those meds.
But again, this is Canada, and I'm not sure that would happen here. A complete walk away?
I don't know.
I would hope it doesn't. So in my opinion, there was no justice served in this case. It's a horrendous murder. It was a despicable act. The life of a 22-year-old young man. I'll call him a boy because my son's almost 21. He's still my boy.
He's still a boy.
You know, his life was cut short. He will never get to do a lot of the things that he won't ever get on a Greyhound bus again. And not because he doesn't want to, because I've ridden the Greyhound bus and I've seen the weirdos that are on them.
Oh, it's fun.
It was not fun.
I always thought it was an adventure.
Well, you went to DC.
Yeah.
I went to fucking Iowa.
Yeah, once. I went to DC. How many weeks?
Yeah. DC. It's 3.5 hours away.
I'm a huge fan of the Greyhound bus. I always had a nice experience, met great people. Drivers were always friendly. Even the
drivers were always friendly
home.
When I went out to Iowa, the drivers were always friendly. However, I did not meet nice people. Everybody was a fucking weirdo. And most of the time I was traveling through the night.
No, I never traveled at night.
I left in the evening
Mhm.
and I got there, was it 26 hours later? In the evening.
Yeah. Does take longer.
Yeah, it takes much longer. Anyway, I just don't think any justice was served here. I think this is a travesty of justice. I think if nothing else, if he was not mentally capable of understanding what he was doing, he should never be out of
A mental
institution. Because if your mental health is that bad that you don't realize that you've cut someone's head off and you were eating them, you should never be in free society again.
Yeah, because plenty of people live and deal with schizophrenia.
And he worked at the Wuhan Institute of Technology with making COVID.
Harvesting bath.
Yeah. So that's that for Vince Lee. I hope people can see why he was on my list of most gruesome murderers of all time. And if not, then who do you think should have been on the list?
Yeah, leave it in the comments.
Yeah. And while you're commenting, hit the little thumbs up on the way down. It's very easy. It costs nothing. It's free. I'm going to make it free for the whole month of May to hit the like button.
Check out the other podcasts on the Den.
And while you're at it, we took on Vince Lee. Now you go take on the world.
This podcast is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find other great shows on the network, head over to deluxeeditionnetwork.com. That's deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Hold on, stop.
Welcome back to the Shit Show 2.0.
Okay, Boomer.
Damn millennials.
Wow. Did not know that. Even flirters who are obviously mentally ill. You want to be my wife?
Oh, this is gonna go downhill real quick.